Commander Rhiannon Vale stood at rigid attention in the crystalline audience chamber of the Galaxian flagship, her dress uniform uncomfortable in the ship's humid atmosphere. The air smelled of ozone and something sweeter, like rotting fruit. Around her, the assembled Galaxian court chittered and whispered, their iridescent scales reflecting prismatic light across the chamber's organic walls. Empress Nyxis towered over them all from her living throne, her serpentine form coiled around the pulsing crystalline structure. At 4 meters tall, she was small for a Galaxian royal, a fact she compensated for with excessive displays of power. Today was no different. The Peace Summit was clearly meant to remind humanity of their place in the galactic hierarchy. Commander Vale, the Empress's translator device, rendered her subsonic speech into crisp English. "We are pleased by your species' recent contributions to the collective." Her head tilted, jeweled chains jingling. "Though we find your methods unconventional." Vale kept her expression neutral. Last month, her ship had saved a Galaxian mining colony from pirates, by using mining explosives to trigger a controlled asteroid collision. "Unconventional, yes, but effective." "We appreciate your Radiance's recognition," she replied carefully. "Indeed." The Empress's primary eyes narrowed while her secondary set blinked rapidly, a sign of amusement or contempt, Vale wasn't sure which. "To show our appreciation, we offer you a gift." Vale's spine stiffened. Galaxian gifts were rarely benevolent. A side door in the organic wall dilated, and 2 guards entered, dragging between them a male Galaxian. He was massive even by their standards, but something was clearly wrong. His scales were dull, lacking the characteristic shimmer, and his movements were jerky, uncoordinated. "This is Thrak," the Empress announced. "A warrior from our most prestigious breeding line. Sadly, defective. His neural patterns are aberrant. He cannot properly commune with our technology." Her mandibles clicked in what Vale recognized as their equivalent of a sneer. "Perhaps your species, with its primitive methods, will find a use for him." The assembled court rippled with subsonic laughter. This wasn't a gift, it was an insult, meant to emphasize humanity's technological inferiority. They were being given a broken weapon, a reminder that even a defective Galaxian was considered more valuable than a human. But Vale's attention was fixed on Thrak. Despite his apparent disabilities, his eyes were sharp, intelligent. He met her gaze steadily, and in that moment she saw something the Empress had missed, not brokenness, but difference. Something new. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was finding value in the unexpected. "Your Radiance honors us," Vale said, bowing deeply. "We accept with gratitude." A ripple of surprise passed through the court. The Empress's secondary eyes blinked rapidly. This wasn't the reaction she'd expected. "You accept?" "Of course." Vale straightened, allowing a small smile. After all, one person's defect is another's adaptation. Evolution itself teaches us that change drives progress. The Empress's scales flickered with barely contained anger. Vale had turned her insult into a philosophical discussion, and worse, had implied that defects might have value, a deeply heretical concept in Galaxian culture. "Take him, then," the Empress hissed, her translator crackling with distortion. "Let us see what progress you make." As Vale's security team moved to escort Thrak to their shuttle, she caught his eye again. There was something there, gratitude, yes, but also a fierce intelligence. The Empress thought she was giving away trash, but Vale's instincts told her otherwise. 20 years of space exploration had taught her that the most valuable discoveries often came disguised as mistakes. Back aboard the TSV Horizon, Vale's first officer, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Wong, fell into step beside her as they headed to medical. "Permission to speak freely, Commander?" "Always, Marcus." "Are we sure about this?" Taking in a Galaxian, especially one they consider defective, it could be seen as provocative. Vale smiled grimly. Everything we do is seen as provocative. But did you notice his eyes? How he watched everything. That's not a defective soldier, that's someone who's learned to observe because he's different. She paused outside the medical bay. And right now, different is exactly what we need. The Galaxians are hiding something, Marcus. Their recent expansion, these peace summits, the way they're trying to isolate us from other species. Something's coming. And maybe, just maybe, our new friend holds a piece of the puzzle. Through the medical bay window, they watched Dr. Patel begin Thrak's examination. The Galaxian moved with surprising grace despite his apparent motor difficulties, his actions deliberate and measured. As if sensing their observation, he turned and met Vale's gaze again. This time, she was certain, behind those alien eyes lay not deficiency, but possibility. Besides, she added quietly, sometimes the greatest strengths lie in our supposed weaknesses. The Empress meant to shame us by gifting us her cast-off. Instead, she may have given us exactly what we need, someone who sees the world differently than either human or Galaxian. And in times like these, a new perspective might be the most valuable weapon of all. 2 weeks into Thrak's integration aboard the TSV Horizon, Commander Vale found herself spending more time in the ship's research lab than her own quarters. She watched through the observation window as Thrak attempted to interface with a piece of salvaged Galaxian technology, a simple communication relay. Unlike his brethren, who could mentally link with their biotech instantly, Thrak's connection was different. Where they forced themselves upon the technology, he listened. Fascinating, Dr. Patel murmured beside her, checking readings on her tablet. His neural patterns when interfacing are completely unlike anything we've recorded from other Galaxians. It's not that he can't connect, he's connecting on a fundamentally different frequency. Vale leaned forward as the relay crystal began to pulse with a soft, steady light. He's done it again. Impossible, came a sharp voice from behind them. Vale turned to find Ambassador Lysith, the Galaxian diplomatic attaché, his scales rippling with disbelief. That relay was coded to royal frequencies only. No warrior caste should be able to access it, much less a defective. Yet here we are, Vale replied coolly. She'd grown tired of the ambassador's constant surveillance, thinly disguised as cultural exchange. Perhaps your understanding of defective needs revision. Inside the lab, Thrak's large hands moved with surprising delicacy over the crystal's surface. His eyes were closed, his breathing steady. The relay's light shifted through colors that Vale had never seen it produce before. Commander, Thrak's voice rumbled through the intercom. I'm finding something strange. This relay, it's old. Far older than its manufacture date suggests. There are layers of programming, buried deep. He paused, his secondary eyes flickering rapidly. Some of this code, it's not Galaxian. At least, not modern Galaxian. Ambassador Lysith moved forward sharply, scales flushing dark. This session is over. You are exceeding the agreed-upon parameters of. A sudden alarm cut him off. Lieutenant Commander Wong's voice crackled over the ship-wide comm, Commander to the bridge. We're picking up a distress signal from the Epsilon colony. Vale was moving before Wong finished speaking. Continue the tests, she ordered Dr. Patel. Ambassador, feel free to observe. Or don't. She didn't wait for his response. On the bridge, Wong had already brought up the distress signal details. Multiple ships approaching the colony, he reported. Configuration unknown, but they're not broadcasting any recognized IDs. Pirates? Vale settled into her command chair. No. Wong's expression was grim. Too organized. Too many. This is a military force, Commander. The tactical display showed at least 12 ships, their formation precise and purposeful. As Vale watched, they began to split into attack vectors with practiced efficiency. Time to intercept? 4 hours at maximum speed. Vale's hand tightened on her armrest. Epsilon was one of their newest colonies, its defenses still under construction. Signal command and get us moving. Then. Commander. Dr. Patel's voice burst from the comm, you need to see this. Thrax found something in the relay's deep code. It's a tactical database, ship configurations, attack patterns. These approaching ships? They're Galaxian Black Ops vessels. Ones that officially don't exist. Vale turned to find Ambassador Lysith already gone, no doubt rushing to contact his superiors. Send everything to tactical. Wong, get us there faster. The next hours were a blur of preparation. Vale ordered the colony to begin emergency evacuations, but she knew they'd never get everyone out in time. The Horizon was the only military vessel within range, they'd have to find a way to hold off the attack force alone. In the tactical room, Thrak worked feverishly with their systems team, his newfound ability to communicate with Galaxian tech proving invaluable. Their ships use quantum-locked targeting systems, he explained, manipulating a holographic display with those surprisingly graceful movements. Impossible to jam by conventional means. But these older subroutines I found, they suggest a vulnerability. A resonance frequency that could disrupt their entire command and control network. Can we exploit it? Maybe. But we'd need to get very close. And... He hesitated. Commander, these attack patterns, the timing, this isn't a random strike. The Empress knew about your colony's defensive gaps. This is a test. Vale met his four-eyed gaze steadily. Of what? Of you. Of humans. The Empress isn't sure whether to fear you or dismiss you. This attack will force you to show your true capabilities. His secondary eyes blinked rapidly. And perhaps, that's exactly what we should do. Vale smiled grimly. You have an idea? Yes. Thrak's hands danced over the tactical display. But you'll have to trust me. And it will mean revealing something I suspect the Empress already fears, that my defect isn't a weakness at all. It's an evolution. As Vale listened to his plan, she felt that familiar surge of certainty, the same instinct that had told her to accept this gift in the first place. The Empress had meant to saddle them with a broken warrior. Instead, she might have given them the key to understanding the Galaxians' greatest secrets, and perhaps, to surviving what was coming. Do it, she ordered. Wong, begin battle preparations. Let's show them exactly what a human ship and a defective Galaxian can do together. As the crew rushed to their stations, Vale caught Thrak's eye once more. In that moment, they shared an unspoken understanding, whatever the Empress's game was, the rules were about to change. The real question was, were either of their species ready for what those changes would bring? The TSV Horizon dropped out of hyperspace on the edge of the Epsilon system, its hull thrumming with power. Commander Vale took in the tactical display with a growing sense of dread. The Galaxian attack force had already engaged the colony's minimal defenses, their sleek black ships moving with predatory grace. Status of the evacuation? Vale demanded. 60% complete, Wong reported grimly. But they're targeting the escape corridors now. Civilian ships are getting picked off. Vale's jaw tightened. Thrak, are you ready? In the modified sensor bay below the bridge, Thrak sat within a hastily constructed interface chamber. Crystalline nodes surrounded him, salvaged from the relay they'd been studying. Ready, Commander. But you should know, accessing their systems like this, it will alert them to what I am. What I can do. The Empress will know. She already does, Vale replied. That's why we're here. Execute the plan. Thrak closed all four eyes and reached out with his mind. Through the jerry-rigged interface, his consciousness brushed against the quantum-locked networks of the Galaxian ships. Where other Calaxians would have tried to force their way in, he listened, felt, understood. The ancient code fragments he discovered weren't just protocols, they were a different way of communicating with the living technology that powered their civilization. The effect was immediate. 3 of the Calaxian ships suddenly broke formation, their weapons powering down. Through their shared tactical link, Thrak's voice echoed with strain, "I can't hold them all. Their commanders are fighting back. But I've created a gap, a safe corridor for the evacuation ships. Wong, get our people out. All weapons, target the ships still under their control. Let's show them what happens when they threaten our colonies." The battle that followed would later be called the Miracle of Epsilon. The Horizon, despite being severely outgunned, managed to hold off the entire attack force. Between Thrak's unprecedented control over their systems and Veil's unconventional tactics, they forced the Calaxians into retreat. But victory came with a price. Hours later, Veil stood in Medical Bay, watching Dr. Patel treat Thrak's neural burns. The effort of interfacing with so many ships had taken a severe toll. But it was his words, not his injuries, that troubled her most. "While I was connected," he said weakly, all 4 eyes struggling to focus, "I saw something. Fragments of encrypted transmissions, buried orders. Commander, this attack, it wasn't just a test. It was preparation." "Preparation for what?" "War." His secondary eyes flickered rapidly. "But not just with humans. The Empress, she's found something. Ancient technology, buried in deep space. The same technology that the old code in that relay was meant to control. My ability to interface with it differently, it's not a defect. It's how our ancestors used to communicate with these systems, before the royal bloodline changed everything." Veil leaned forward. "Changed what?" "Our entire species." Thrak struggled to sit up. "The royal caste, they modified themselves, forced evolution in a specific direction. Made it so only they could control the most powerful technologies. But in doing so, they lost the ability to truly understand the oldest systems. Systems that could." He shuddered. "Systems that could reshape reality itself. And now the Empress has found these systems again," Veil concluded. "But she can't fully control them. No. Not without someone like me. That's why she gave me to you, she wanted to see if my abilities would develop differently among humans. And now that they have." He met her gaze steadily. "She'll come for me. For all of us." Before Veil could respond, the ship's AI announced, "Priority transmission from Earth Command." The holographic display showed multiple attack reports, similar to what had happened at Epsilon, all occurring simultaneously across human space. But more disturbing were the reports from other species, the Arcturians, the Vex Collective, even the notoriously isolationist Meridians. All of them were under attack by unknown forces. "She's testing all of us," Thrak whispered. "Looking for weaknesses, studying responses. The Empress plans to use the ancient technology to subjugate everyone, reshape all civilization in her image. And now that she knows what I can do, she'll try to capture you," Veil finished. "Study you. Maybe even try to replicate your abilities. We can't let that happen." Thrak's voice strengthened with determination. "Commander, I know where these ancient systems are. The knowledge was hidden in that relay, buried so deep even the royals forgot it was there. But to reach them, we'd have to go into the heart of Calaxian space." Veil was already moving toward the door. "Wong, set a course for Earth. We need to warn Command." She paused, looking back at Thrak. "And we need to gather allies. If the Empress wants to reshape reality, she'll learn the hard way that humans don't take kindly to having their future decided for them." As the Horizon jumped to hyperspace, Veil felt the weight of what was coming settle onto her shoulders. They'd won today, but this was just the beginning. The real storm was still gathering strength. And when it broke, it would reshape not just human space, but the entire galaxy. The question was, would they be ready in time? The forbidden heart of Galaxian space was beautiful in its alienness. Vast crystalline structures floated between the stars, their surfaces rippling with bioorganic light. But Commander Vale, standing on the horizon's bridge, saw only danger in that beauty. They'd managed to slip past the outer defenses using protocols Thrak had extracted from the ancient relay, but getting out would be another matter entirely. Multiple ships on long-range sensors, Wong reported quietly. But they haven't detected us yet. The masking frequencies are holding. Vale nodded. After the attacks across human space, Earth Command had initially wanted to launch a full military response. But Vale and Thrak had convinced them that a surgical strike was their only real option. While the combined human fleet kept the Galaxian forces occupied with hit-and-run attacks, the Horizon would slip through their lines with a vital mission: find the source of the ancient technology before the Empress could fully activate it. Energy readings are getting stronger, Thrak announced from his modified interface chamber. The coordinates from the relay were correct. Whatever the Empress found, it's in that structure. He indicated a massive crystalline formation ahead, shaped like an inverted pyramid. Unlike the other structures, this one seemed to absorb light rather than emit it. Any signs of defense systems? None that I can detect. But Thrak's secondary eyes flickered rapidly. There's something else. Neural patterns, thousands of them. Similar to mine. Vale leaned forward. More defectives? Yes. The Empress hasn't been destroying those born different, she's been collecting them. Studying them. His voice hardened. Experimenting on them. Before Vale could respond, alarms blared. Multiple ships decloaking. Wong shouted. We've got company. The void around them suddenly filled with Galaxian vessels, appearing from behind sophisticated cloaking fields. On the main view screen, a familiar figure materialized, Empress Nixis herself, her scales gleaming with barely contained rage. Did you think we wouldn't notice? Her translator rendered her subsonic speech into a snarl. The moment you accessed those old frequencies, you confirmed everything. Thrak isn't defective, he's reverting. Accessing abilities we thought we'd bred out of our species generations ago. You mean abilities you suppressed, Vale countered. You modified your entire species, forced them to evolve along paths you could control. But you couldn't eliminate everything, could you? Nature finds a way. Nature? The Empress's secondary eyes blinked rapidly in mockery. Nature is chaos. We brought order. Perfect, hierarchical order. And with what we've found here, what we've awakened, we'll bring that order to every species in the galaxy. You're wrong. Thrak's voice came through clear and strong. I've seen the truth in the ancient codes. Our ancestors didn't believe in enforced order. They understood that true strength comes from diversity, from allowing natural evolution to take its course. That's why they created these systems, not to control, but to connect. The Empress's scales darkened. Impudent mutation. You understand nothing. The technology we found here will allow us to reshape reality itself. To rewrite the very laws of evolution across the galaxy. Every species, every world, will evolve according to our design. Perfect order, perfect control. And that's where you're wrong again, Vale said quietly. Because while you've been monologuing, we've been broadcasting this entire conversation to every ship in your fleet. Every defective you've been experimenting on. Every warrior who might be questioning why their children sometimes turn out wrong. She smiled grimly. You forgot the first rule of evolution, your radiance. Adaptation requires change. And change? Change requires chaos. As if on cue, alarms began blaring throughout the Galaxian fleet. Ship after ship reported systems failing, weapons powering down. Through their shared neural link, Thrak had connected with his fellow defectives, showing them the truth of their abilities, teaching them in moments what had taken him weeks to learn. You see, Vale continued, we figured out your real plan. These aren't just defensive positions, this is a gathering. You brought every ship, every soldier here to witness your moment of triumph. But instead, they're going to witness something else entirely. The Empress's image flickered as her own ship's systems began to fail. What have you done? We're not doing anything, Thrak replied. We're undoing. Every modification, every suppressed gene, every forced evolution, the ancient systems don't just let us connect with technology. They let us connect with each other. And through that connection, we can choose to change back. Around them, the crystalline structures began to pulse with new light. Not the cold, controlled brilliance of Galaxian technology, but something older, more organic. More natural. You'll doom us all to chaos, the Empress shrieked. No, Vale said firmly. We're freeing them to choose their own path. Evolution isn't about control, it's about adaptation. About finding strength in difference. And right now, your Radiance, you're the one who's failed to adapt. As the Empress's image dissolved into static, Vale turned to Wong. Status? The fleet, they're standing down. All of them. And we're getting signals from the structure. Hundreds of them. The prisoners are free. Vale looked at Thrak, who was smiling with all four eyes. It's working, he said. They're awakening. Remembering. But. His expression sobered. This is just the beginning. The Empress won't give up easily. And changing an entire species' path of evolution, it won't be simple. Or peaceful. Nothing worth doing ever is, Vale replied. But they won't be doing it alone. She turned to the helm. Signal Earth command. Tell them Phase 1 is complete. And then let's get these people home, all of them. As the horizon moved to dock with the ancient structure, Vale watched the Galaxian ships realigning themselves, no longer in their rigid battle formations. Already, they were adapting, changing, choosing new paths. The real war wasn't over, in many ways, it was just beginning. But they'd struck the first blow, not with weapons, but with truth. And sometimes, that was the most powerful weapon of all. 3 days after the revelation at the ancient structure, the TSV Horizon orbited the Galaxian homeworld, Nixus Prime. The planet's crystalline cities glittered like scattered diamonds across its purple continents, but beneath that beauty, revolution was brewing. Commander Vale watched the tactical display as reports flooded in from across Galaxian space. The Empress had retreated to her inner sanctum, but her influence was crumbling. Nearly 40% of the fleet had declared independence, led by officers whose children had been labeled defective. More significantly, the truth about the species' forced evolution had sparked widespread unrest among the civilian population. Another transmission from the Resistance, Wong reported. They've secured the neural archives. The Empress's personal guards are still holding the Temple of Ascension, but they're surrounded. Vale nodded, then turned to where Thrak stood at the modified sensor station. The changes in him were subtle but profound. His once jerky movements had transformed into a fluid grace as his body adjusted to its original genetic programming. More importantly, his ability to interface with both ancient and modern technology had grown exponentially. The temple is where it has to end, Thrak said, his 4 eyes focused on the holographic display of the capital city. That's where she's keeping the core of the ancient system, the technology she thought would let her control evolution itself. Can she still activate it? Yes. But not in the way she planned. He turned to Vale. The system was never meant to control evolution. It was designed to understand it, to help species navigate their own natural development. In her hands, it could still cause catastrophic damage. Vale's response was cut off by a priority alert. The Empress's image appeared on all channels, her scales nearly black with rage. The translator struggled to keep up with her subsonic frequencies. "Faithless children," she hissed. "You think your rebellion brings freedom? You bring only chaos. Evolution demands direction. Purpose. Control. If you will not accept the path I designed, then none shall have a path at all." Behind her, they could see the ancient technology pulsing with ominous energy. The temple's crystalline spires began to resonate at frequencies that made the horizon sensors scream in protest. "She's trying to trigger a cascade failure," Thrak said urgently. "If she succeeds, it won't just affect Calaxians. The quantum resonance will spread through subspace, disrupting DNA patterns across dozens of systems. Billions will die as their own genetics turn against them." Vale was already moving. "Wong, get us as close to the temple as you can." "Thrak, can you stop her?" "Not alone." "But..." He paused, his secondary eyes blinking rapidly. "I won't have to be alone." Understanding dawned. "The others like you. The ones we freed." "Yes. Through the ancient systems, we can connect. Create a network powerful enough to counter her commands." "But..." He met her gaze. "We'll need humans too. Your minds work differently, you see patterns we miss, find solutions we'd never consider. That's why she fears you so much. Your chaos, your adaptability, it's what we lost when we tried to force evolution into a single path." Vale didn't hesitate. "Tell me what you need." What followed would later be called the Battle of Paths. As the Empress attempted to unleash genetic devastation across the galaxy, an unprecedented collaboration unfolded. Hundreds of defective Calaxians joined their minds through the ancient network, their consciousness spreading through the living technology of their civilization. But it was the human crew of the Horizon who provided the crucial element, the ability to think laterally, to find unexpected solutions, to embrace chaos as a tool rather than an enemy. Vale herself joined the neural link through a modified interface, her human mind adding its unique perspective to the collective. Through Thrak's guidance, they didn't fight the Empress's commands, they transformed them, redirecting the energy she tried to unleash. The Temple of Ascension became a beacon, not of controlled evolution, but of possibility. The ancient technology responded to their combined influence, releasing information long suppressed, the true history of the Calaxian people, the natural diversity they had once celebrated, the countless paths of development they had closed off in their quest for perfect order. When the Empress realized she was losing control, she tried to destroy the temple itself. But she had forgotten the most fundamental law of evolution: adaptation requires cooperation as much as competition. Working together, humans and Calaxians prevented the destruction, containing the explosive energies she unleashed and channeling them into a controlled release that lit up the sky with aurora-like displays. In the end, it wasn't weapons or warriors that decided the fate of two civilizations. It was understanding. Connection. The recognition that strength comes not from enforcing a single path, but from allowing many paths to flourish. Hours later, Vale stood in the temple's central chamber, watching as Thrak and others of his kind worked to stabilize the ancient systems. The Empress had been taken into custody by her own royal guard, many of whom had hidden their own genetic differences for generations. "It will take time," Thrak said, joining her at the observation window. "Generations of enforced evolution can't be undone in a day. Some will want to maintain the old ways. Others will push for too much change too quickly. Finding balance will be challenging. That's what makes it worth doing," Vale replied. "Perfect order is stagnation. Perfect chaos is destruction. Life exists in the balance between them." She turned to face him. "The question is, what path will you choose?" Thrak's 4 eyes crinkled in what she now recognized as a smile. "The path I'm already on." The Empress thought she was punishing me by sending me to humans. Instead, she showed me exactly where I needed to be. Our species have much to learn from each other. Vale nodded, looking out at the city where humans and Galaxians now moved freely among each other, sharing knowledge, sharing perspectives, sharing possibilities. The Empress was right about one thing: evolution does demand purpose. She just didn't understand what that purpose was. And what is it? To grow. To change. To become more than we are. She smiled. But most importantly, to do it together. As the first sun of Nix's prime rose over the horizon, its light caught the crystalline spires of the city, breaking into 1,000 colors. Like evolution itself, like life itself, it was chaotic, unpredictable, and utterly beautiful. A new dawn for both their species, and a reminder that the greatest gifts often come disguised as defects, wrapped in the simple courage to be different.